strategically, how does Code Pink go about deciding what the nature of its protests are going to be? Obviously, you guys go viral from time to time for having confrontations of politicians at, town halls or other sort of public events, congressional hearings and the like.
You're just a Jew hater, right? You're along for the ride.
How about weapons to Israel? Do you think you're...
Oh, you're the China people. Speaking of China, yes, you are funded.
Oh,
yes, you do. You are 100%
How much do you get
funded.
from AIPAC?
You are 100% funded by the Chinese Communist Party.
It's a lie. We get
It is
zero.
absolutely true.
It's
It has
such a
been
lie.
documented over and over.
Show me one
You are.
documentation.
Oh,
Show
go
me proof.
go look at the
You're
New York Times
deflecting
article.
from
No,
all
I'm
the
not.
money you take
You
from
are.
AIPAC.
No, I'm
You're a
not.
foreign
You're an
agent.
anti-Semite,
You're a
and
foreign
you
agent.
are
I am
an
Jewish.
absolute. It doesn't matter.
You're
You are an
baby
anti-Israel,
killer because you want to
pro-China,
send more
pro-CCP. It is
to kill
disgusting.
more children in
Your
Gaza.
organization has
Doesn't that
defended
hurt
the
your
Uyghurs.
heart?
They have
All
defended
of
the
the
Uyghurs being
children that are
violated,
being killed,
being persecuted.
weapons that you
It
are
is a
voting
moral
for.
travesty
Talk
what
about
you
moral
do.
travesty.
You are a moral.
Have you
Where's the blood on your
Have you
hands? You have
seen
blood
the-
on
you
your
have-
hands.
have you seen
You
the
are
pictures
awash
from
in blood
Gaza?
and dirty
Have you
money.
seen the
And I
children dying in
hope that
Gaza?
you are accountable
Have
for
you
that
seen
one
the
day.
children dying in Gaza? And you're such a liar. We get zero money from China. That is such a big slanderous lie.
Your
I
money.
think this guy is
Listen.
Israel first.
I think so,
Please
too.
don't post this. I hope you'll post this.
He deflects.
You
what
are
he just voted
a Chinese
for
agent.
was
You are a war
35
criminal.
The blood of Uyghurs on your hands.
You're a baby killer.
And
How
I
many
oh no,
bombs?
you're a baby killer.
You're a
The
baby
Uyghur
killer.
babies, their blood is
How
on your
many
hands.
bombs did you
The
just
blood
vote
of the
to?
Chinese is
You
on
just
your
voted to
hands.
send
And of course of the Jews
35,000
is on your hands.
2,000-pound
Jewish.
bombs to
Who
Israel.
are you? Oh no, you are. Oh no.
Yeah.
Don't accuse me of things. You're a Jew hater. You would destroy the nation of Israel. You are morally
I'm a healthcare
abysmal.
worker. I save lives.
You are appalling. Your
I'm a
your
healthcare
hatred for the
worker.
Jews.
I
Who
save
cares?
lives.
And that you don't
You
save
kill-
lives.
no, you kill
You are
them.
killing Jews and loving it. And loving it. You're despicable.
You are a war criminal, baby killer.
Baby killer, you got blood all over your hands. Baby killer.
And you're obviously a smaller group than the millions of people that came out across the country who I think more have the power to have actual disruptions. Like, weird to have to use this group as the example, but it seems like the most recent historical example, like Canadian trucker style, we're actually going to shut down commerce in downtown and we're going to get a response from politicians as a consequence of our genuine disruption. Like, I don't expect Code Pink to have the same sort of capacity as a sort of larger institutional group or a larger turnout group. But how do you go about making decisions about how to have the biggest impact with the resources available to you?
Yeah, so I think we ask ourselves three questions. Will what we do educate people when we put it out? So whatever we're doing, if it's Medea chasing down a member of Congress, asking them questions, will it expose this member of Congress or, the greater Congress as a whole for what they are and what they stand for, which is against the interests of against the interests of American people and in service of the war machine? Will it educate people who see it? And after that, will it inspire them to take some sort of action afterwards? So if the answer is yes, then we take those actions. So that's why we disrupt so many things. It's because people see it and they see, what we're really doing, and this is why we're pissing off so many members of Congress, is we are representing a very, very popular opinion of the American public, which is against war and for peace. Whether it's Ukraine or Israel, a majority of Americans don't want to send more weapons to Ukraine. A majority of Americans want a ceasefire in Gaza. So we're representing this very, very popular opinion. And when Americans see the videos of members of Congress getting all angry and oppositional towards us for just expressing that, opinion, it's important for them to see how their representatives are reacting to it. So that's just as an example of how we decide those kinds of things.
It's worth noting, to your point about opinion news, that, as we're talking today, this incredible new opinion poll just came out showing that a majority of adults in the U.S. now have an unfavorable view of Israel at 53% of the population. And there's a chart that shows the shifts between 2022 and 2025. The total percentage of the U.S. population that has an unfavorable view has gone from 42% in 2022 to 53% now. And then they go ahead and disaggregate it by Republican-leaning people and Democratic-leaning people, and then in two age groups, like 18 to 49 and 50 plus. And you see some really interesting, huge shifts in Democrats over 50, who went from 43% to 66% unfavorable. I think that's the biggest shift. But also among Republicans, you have youngish Republicans, 18 to 49, going from 35 to 50% unfavorable. So this is a crisis for both parties who are committed to Zionism to try to figure out how they're going to sell these deeply unfavorable policies, which is why I think you're at this kind of apex point where the only solution is to try to fear people by deporting people with, liminal, it's not even liminal status. I mean, they have permanent residency status, but something other than full citizenship out of the country. Like that's a last gasp of desperation is what it feels like. That being said, there's an enormous opportunity here. Again, it seems, for protest movements. And it's hard for me. I feel this familiar sort of creeping concern that comes from having observed how 2020 went down and those George Floyd protests went down. And I remember sitting there and watching it all play out in the context of a political campaign in 2020 and seeing how quickly the Democratic Party was able to flip this idea that Democrats have to be tough on crime to beat Trump, beating Trump being the ultimate priority. Therefore, George Floyd, police violence, the thing that had turned all these people out into the streets, had to be deprioritized. And the Democratic Party seems to have learned a lot of lessons from how to manage protest in that instance. One, by ratcheting up the building of cop cities all over the country, but also by perhaps basically allowing or even encouraging these opportunities for people to turn out and express themselves, whether it be at a anti-oligarchy protest or an event like the one we've been discussing, to basically get some of their angst off their chest and be able to go back about their business without escalating to something genuinely disruptive, like, I don't know, burning down the Minneapolis police station, an act which I remember was actually very popular among the public at the time.
Yeah. I think it represents a bigger need for political education, especially amongst like regular Americans, why this team sport political system isn't working. And when it comes to the shift, the opinion poll you cited, I think that the establishment realized probably months ago that this was going to be a problem, and that's why they're cracking down so hard. And it's not just, the attempted deport Mahmoud Halil, the kidnapping people off the street by ICE agents in plain clothes, and then to a lesser degree of intensity, you have, as an example, what's happening to Code Pink right now, which is members of Congress regurgitating lies about us in formal Senate hearings and then to the media that we are funded by a foreign government and therefore represent the ideas of a foreign government.
The protester was a Code Pink lunatic saying the greatest threat to world peace is funding Israel. I will observe, for the benefit of the audience here on television, that Code Pink is funded by communist China as well.
Tomorrow we'll be going to the Senate Ethics Committee to file a complaint against Senator Tom Cotton, who is the head of the Intelligence Committee in the Senate. Now, yesterday, in a very important intel hearing with all of the heads of the intelligence committees, he said that Code Pink was funded by the Chinese Communist Party, and that's why we're speaking out against Israel. It is absolutely false. Code Pink gets zero, that's zero, money from the Chinese Communist Party, and we don't need an outside country to tell us that funding genocide is wrong. Of course, it's Tom Cotton, who gets hundreds of thousands of dollars from AIPAC, who is beholden to a foreign country, not us. But it's very dangerous that he's spreading these lies about Code Pink. So we're asking for your help. Please join us, sign the petition below so that we can show that there are thousands and thousands of people who are very upset with Tom Cotton and want the Ethics Committee to do its job. Thank you.
when in reality, as you stated, we are representing the majority opinion of adults in the United States. I'll say it here. We're not funded by a foreign government. We receive no money from a foreign government, and take no orders from a foreign government. We have the very popular opinion to be anti-war and anti-genocide. So I think they know that they're losing on the ideological front, and they're grasping at straws to make people afraid. And I think people are afraid. And I'm glad so many people came out over the weekend, but I think people are getting kind of freaked out by the incoming repression, and I'm hoping that instead of, succumbing to that fear, they realize that if we don't stand against it now, we stand no chance moving forward in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad. I was going to pivot right where you did to what's been going on with Code Pink. So Tom Cotton accused Code Pink of being funded by the Chinese Communist Party and called your volunteers, quote, lunatics. Days later, Senator Jim Banks called for a formal investigation into your organization, alleging violations of the Foreign Agents Registration Act, FARA. And, this is notably part of a pattern of behavior. I think most people have been following the story about the children's. I'm sorry, I don't have small children in my life, so I forgetting her name. But
Miss Rachel,
sorry.
Yeah.
They're coming after Miss Rachel as anti-Semitic, a toddler's programmer, because she said that children in Gaza shouldn't be killed and should have food and water and not have the highest amputation rate in the world. And they're literally investigating her and accusing her of receiving Qatari money and such things. So tell me about what the mood is within Code Pink. Are you concerned that there might be some kind of real tangible repercussions for this? Or do you think this is mostly just the sort of fear mongering that certain Zionists in our government have been perpetrating against anybody who was willing to advocate for the interest of Palestinians or any anti-war interest, generally speaking?
Yeah, I mean, the worry is always there that the Trump administration has made it obvious that they don't really care about the rule of law, and they'll do whatever they want for any reason that they want. So obviously the worry is there, but that doesn't mean that we're going to stop doing what we're doing or do anything differently. Because also Code Pink we've had these accusations before when we were saying the American population does not want to keep sending money to Ukraine. We were accused of being Putin agents or paid by the Russian government. When we said that we should protect the Iran nuclear deal, we were accused of being paid by the Iranian government. We've been accused, like so many other pro-Palestinian organizations, of working directly with Hamas or being paid by Hamas. It's funny. Our Jim Banks, you mentioned the letter that Jim Banks sent to Attorney General Pam Bondi. Our Indiana chapter, he's from Indiana, did this public invitation for him to come to their next meeting because they're all volunteers. They were like, how would we be paid by China? That doesn't make any sense. So, it's always a fear that that's happening. And I think most people in Code Pink are actually more worried about the more vulnerable groups there are way more vulnerable groups than Code Pink. And when you said Miss Rachel, I saw the Miss Rachel stuff this morning. Their accusations are starting to sound very schizophrenic. I was like, you guys sound crazy. So
yeah.
At first we were laughing at the China stuff, but now we're taking it a bit more seriously, given how often it's been regurgitated by these people.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's the Stop Anti-Semitism account that has put the hit on Miss Rachel. Genuinely, it really does defy parody. It's her being like, kids should be alive. I'm a child educational programmer, and I think that kids should be allowed to live. And people are responding, this is anti-Semitism, which, is a really tough place. It puts actual non-anti-Zionist Jews and frankly, all Jewish people who don't deserve to be the victims of ethnic-based aggression, regardless of their beliefs, in a tough spot, because they are openly associating unhinged genocidal behavior with the idea of being Jewish, and saying that anybody who criticizes the state of Israel is in fact anti-Semitic. And now on top of all of this, there was this new, let me go to it specifically. There's this new, statement that's been put out where DHS is going to begin screening aliens' social media activity for anti-Semitism. So basically, again, if you're not an American citizen, if you're a green card holder, whatever kind of less than citizenship status that you have, you are going to be surveilled. And basically, if you've ever tweeted Free Palestine, if you've ever been Miss Rachel and said, I think kids should be allowed to live even if they're Palestinian, you are at risk for being deported for anti-Semitism, in quotation marks.
Yeah, and I can't emphasize this enough. If you're listening to this and you're a citizen of the United States and you think this can't happen to you, I'm sorry, but eventually you will be folded into all of this. We said this when Mahmoud was taken, that they are just trying to test this on people who aren't born citizens of the United States. Now they're talking about, the Trump administration talking about deporting naturalized, like, U.S. citizens to El Salvador who have been convicted of violent murder or violent crimes or whatever. Like, they are testing the waters. So if you don't stand up for people who are non-citizens now, this is just a testing ground for them. They're just trying to see what repression that they can get away with. And back to what you said about it creating a scary environment for Jewish anti-Zionists. In one of the videos that you mentioned about Code Pink with Senator Josh Hawley from Missouri, he's talking to Medea. He says, oh, you're the China people, is what he says. And then he says, you're funded by China. He keeps saying these lies. And then he says, you are anti-Semitic. You're anti-Israel. You're anti-Semitic. Medea goes, I am Jewish. And Josh Hawley says, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. 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 I did see James Lee, independent journalist who has been on this show before. I think he was on to talk about the TikTok ban that wasn't, has been doing really good video essays. And he just did one about the Miss Rachel phenomenon and the sort of funding basis for the Stop Anti-Semitism account, which he traced back sort of unsurprisingly to a lot of Israel affiliated donor groups.
You come after Miss Rachel and I will come after you. Context is that there's a group called Stop Anti-Semitism that is accusing Miss Rachel of having transformed her platform into a, quote, amplifier of Hamas propaganda. This is the post that they're citing as anti-Semitic, which the message here is basically stop bombing babies. I mean, we are beyond parody at this point. They're also calling on Attorney General Pam Bondi to investigate Miss Rachel for being a foreign asset or whatever. Once again, just unhinged. But let's turn the table here, shall we, and find out who exactly is funding Stop Anti-Semitism. This next part actually took me a little while because they've actually done a pretty good job of hiding who is behind that group, as they're not a 501c3 nonprofit, meaning they don't have to file any paperwork with the IRS. On their Wikipedia page, it just says that they are a privately funded American advocacy group focused on combating anti-Semitism by exposing individuals perceived by the group as anti-Semitic. Lot of quotation mark usage on my part, I know. The group was founded by this lady named Leora Rez, who is a refugee from the former Soviet Union. Remember her name? We'll get back to her in a second. There's also this article from the Washington Post that reports that the Milstein Family Foundation lists Stop Anti-Semitism as a supported organization on their website. And Adam Milstein is Israeli, served in the IDF, and then moved to America in 1981. But yeah, that's kind of all that's been reported about this organization. That's all we knew up until now. Remember when I said Stop Anti-Semitism doesn't file any paperwork with the IRS? Well, I did a bunch more digging and I found this fundraising campaign for Stop Anti-Semitism. And if we scroll to the bottom here, you'll see an organization called the Morona Leadership Foundation. That is their fiscal sponsor. And as you can see here, it is a 501c3 public charity. So I pulled up the 990 for the Morona Leadership Foundation. And lo and behold, listed as their top officer, Leora Rez. Same lady as before. And their top funder is an organization called the Impact Forum Foundation, which is a, quote, exclusive pro-Israel network of philanthropists to fight anti-Semitism, strengthen the state of Israel, and advance the U.S.-Israel alliance. A super American agenda. Scroll down a little bit more, and we find out that the Morona Family Foundation is tied to a bunch of other NGOs, which I'll read off for you, just a few of these for your sampling, such as the Central Fund of Israel, Israel 21C, the PFE Israel Endowment Fund, Students Supporting Israel, Talk Israel. Like, what the heck is going on here? But yeah, let's investigate Miss Rachel, who teaches kids hide and seek because she might be funded by Qatar.
And the particular charge that Code Pink or any other sort of anti-war or pro-Palestine organization must be funded by a foreign government and needs to have FAR investigations, when in fact so much Israeli money is going to these causes, and not just like generic sort of unrelated to our government causes, like whatever, if they want to fund Hillel on campus or whatever, but through AIPAC directly to Congress members in a way that's very much traceable to their voting record, is so deeply hypocritical and ironic and like difficult to stomach. It feels like gaslighting on an incredible scale. And of course, for so many years, as John Mearsheimer has written and discussed at length, if you talk about any of it, if you acknowledge the existence of the Israel lobby, that in and of itself has been described as an anti-Semitic action. And it does feel like these polls suggest that we're at a tipping point. Again, though, the question is what we do with this tipping point, because I'm sorry, I'm old enough to have ridden this roller coaster before. I remember a time when, in the context of some of these like social justice battles, it seemed like we were really ahead and everyone was like, bail reform's a good idea. All of the, centrist candidates in 2019 had to pretend to be good on all of these social justice issues. George Floyd was murdered and the protests emerged. And there was this period of time where the Democratic Party seemed to scramble, and you had to have, people were genuinely supportive of it, as evidenced by the unprecedented turnout in the streets. And then they had to manage it. And they have effectively figured out how to manage it. And I am just really desperate not to let this kind of political opportunity, where there are a lot of people increasingly having their eyes opened to the limits of the Democratic Party, to be an actual resistance party, to be funneled into something new. And I appreciate that not everyone is going to believe that a third party is what it needs to be funneled into. But at very least, are we organizing people at these rallies to organize their workplaces? Are we asking them to, I don't know, at very least a sort of a voter registration drive? Are we talking about like encouraging some segment of the population to shut down commerce? Are we like, who is in charge? Like who is planning any of these things? And to the extent that your organization is involved in any of the, pro-Palestine or like the good protest, the more lefty protests, do we have a plan? We can't just put it all on the like hands-off people. But there was a separate protest as well that was more explicitly pro-Palestine. And so the question still falls on the rest of us, is do we keep doing that? Because there have been enormous pro-Palestine protests for, well over, a year and a half now. But is it useful? Is it good for them to escalate into something that looks different than marching through the streets and doing sort of message building? That message building has worked, as some combination of all of the messaging has worked, as evidenced by the shifting polls that I just read out. But is that the sum total of what the goal is? The majority of people have negative views of Israel now. Is that mission accomplished? If so, does that mean that we should move into a different sort of a frame? Or in addition to the protests, start using the appetite for mass mobilization for something a little bit more concrete?
Yeah, to speak to both of those points, I see you have "If We Burn" behind you. I also have it behind me. And the basic thesis of the book was that these movements of the early 2000s weren't successful because this sort of the masses didn't have an organization to lead. Like it was like it wasn't an organization. It wasn't it didn't have leaders, it didn't have an agenda, that kind of thing. And I think I can speak to what Code Pink's goal is in all of these things. I can't really speak to other organizations as much, but what we're encouraging all of our chapters to do, and our chapters have grown exponentially in the last 2 years alone, is bringing out your neighbors, people you work with, regular people that, can be sympathetic to this idea, and bring them into the fold so they have an organization to be part of. And I think when it comes to the movement as a whole, I think we have to start thinking of what are our most powerful blocks. I think it's workers, right? People who work wage labor. And I think also something interesting that I read about recently is like debtors, people who owe debt. So people who owe medical debt, which is millions and millions of people in this country, people who owe student debt in this country, which is also millions of people. Organizing to create debtors unions and refusing to pay debt that they owe would be a huge power block, I think. But for Code Pink, it's to get people into an organization, whether it's us or whoever they align with, but so they could actually be organized and bringing more people into the movement. Because it's not just people who show up to protest. It's actually getting those people who are ready to take the next step and do civil disobedience rather than just make a poster and show up to a protest. You have to get them there. And that takes time. It takes political education. It takes people feeling empowered to actually do those things. And it doesn't happen overnight. We actually have to take these people and give them political education, give them community, give them an organization to be a part of for them to feel ready to take that next step. So that's what, Code Pink's idea of it is.
Hey YouTube, thanks for watching. Just a reminder that this is a podcast. You can catch an extra premium episode every Monday for $5 a month at patreon.com/badfaithpodcast. That's patreon.com/badfaithpodcast for $5 a month, an extra episode every week. Additionally, please do consider liking this video, subscribing to this channel. It helps us out. It helps independent media beat the algorithm. We appreciate you. And as always, keep the faith.